My parents didn't come to my academic awards ceremony. They said, "It's not a big deal, your brother has football practice." I stood on stage holding a plaque I'd earned alone. What they didn't know was that I had already made a decision that would change everything. The night my parents skipped my Academy Awards ceremony, I stopped being their daughter in everything but name. They said it wasn't a big deal. That's the part that stuck with me. Not even that they chose my brother's football practice over me, but that they reduced 4 years of my life to something optional. "It's just the academy," my mom said while packing orange slices into a plastic container for Jake. "They hand out those plaques every year." "They don't. The academy isn't school. It's a statewide residential program for advanced students. You test into it. You keep your grades high or you're out." I gave up weekends, dances, and pretty much any normal high school experience to stay there. The awards ceremony wasn't participation. It was for the top 5 students in the entire program. I was ranked second. Dad adjusted Jake's shoulder pads in the kitchen like he was prepping him for the Super Bowl. "We'll celebrate later," he said. "Later never comes in my house. It just turns into the next thing Jake needs." I drove myself to the Academy Auditorium. It's a renovated theater downtown, all red velvet seats and polished wood floors. Parents were lining up early to get photos. I stood there holding the program with my name printed under Distinguished Scholars Recognition, and told myself it didn't matter. When they called me up, the applause was loud. Louder than I expected. The director shook my hand and handed me a glass plaque with my name engraved in gold lettering. For a second, under those lights, I felt seen. Then I looked out into the crowd. There's something humiliating about spotting an empty seat that was supposed to be yours. I had saved 2 seats. I kept thinking maybe they'd slip in late. Maybe they'd surprise me. They didn't. Afterward, people gathered in the lobby. Families took pictures in front of the academy banner. A girl named Priya introduced me to her grandparents who had flown in from Oregon just to see her get an honorable mention. One of the board members asked where my parents were. "Football practice," I said. He blinked like he thought I was joking. I left before the reception cake was even cut. When I got home, the house was loud. Jake was replaying practice footage on Dad's phone, narrating his own highlights. My mom was laughing like he'd just won a championship. No one asked about my night. I set the plaque on the dining table so they couldn't miss it. Jake saw it first. "Oh cool," he said. "Is that like a participation thing?" I almost laughed. Mom glanced at it while stirring sauce. "We're proud of you," she said. "You know that." But she didn't come over to read it. Didn't pick it up. Didn't ask what it was for. That's when I realized something important. They didn't know what the academy had been offering me. 3 weeks earlier, the director had pulled me aside after a research symposium. There's a private foundation that sponsors 1 student each year for an accelerated international fellowship. Full funding. Tuition. Housing. Travel. The catch is you have to leave before senior year ends. You finish remotely and start working on advanced research abroad. It's competitive. They usually pick seniors. They picked me. I hadn't told my parents yet because I knew what they'd say. "It's too far. It's unnecessary. Jake needs us here. You can do college nearby." But standing in that empty auditorium seat's shadow, holding proof that I mattered somewhere, I made the decision. I was going to accept. I went upstairs and opened my laptop. The acceptance deadline was midnight. It was 10:42 p.m. I filled out the form carefully. Passport information. Academic portfolio confirmation. Emergency contact. That part made me pause. Emergency contact. I stared at the box for a full minute before typing in my grandmother's name instead of my parents'. Grandma Ruth has always sent me handwritten notes after every report card. She once drove 3 hours just to watch me present a robotics project at the academy when I was 15. I clicked submit at 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes later, an automated confirmation email hit my inbox. "Welcome to the International Fellows cohort." I closed the laptop and lay back on my bed. Downstairs, I could hear my dad telling Jake he had real potential if he kept pushing. I wondered what they'd say when they found out I'd be gone in 6 weeks. And not just gone for college. Gone to another country. Gone before Jake's big championship season even started. They still thought this was just an Academy Award. They had no idea it was my exit. They didn't ask a single question. I left the acceptance email open in a browser tab on my laptop for a week. Not because I wanted them to find it, but because some part of me wanted to believe they'd notice. That they'd see me typing late at night, filling out forms, printing paperwork, and ask what I was doing. They didn't. The fellowship coordinator emailed me twice with travel details. I needed my birth certificate, passport, vaccination records, a signed release form, and a financial waiver. Everything had a deadline, and none of it required a parent's signature because I'd be turning 18 2 days before the flight. Every time I walked through the house with a printed document, no one looked up. Jake had playoffs. The whole house moved around his game schedule. My mom bought team hoodies. My dad started leaving work early to pick him up from conditioning. They sat at the dinner table every night talking strategy like he was being scouted. I started keeping a duffel bag in my closet and filling it piece by piece. Not clothes yet, just the things I couldn't replace. My journal, some photos from the academy, the letter from Grandma Ruth with the pressed flower inside, a USB drive with every project I'd ever worked on. I waited until the last possible day to tell her. She picked up on the first ring like she always did. I told her everything. The award, the fellowship, the flight, the goodbye I wasn't planning to say to anyone else. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I'll drive you to the airport." Not, "I'm proud of you," not, "Are you sure?" Just that. Because she knew I didn't need permission. I needed backup. In the days leading up to the flight, I faked normal. I packed slowly. I made it look like nothing in my life was changing. I ate dinner with them. I watched Jake's practice videos when he shoved his phone in my face. I even offered to help my mom with grocery shopping. She said sure, then sent me in alone while she took a call in the car. On my last night in the house, no one noticed I didn't bring my laundry downstairs. Grandma picked me up the next morning before sunrise. I left a note on my bedroom door. Nothing emotional. Just the facts. Where I was going. That I'd finish my diploma remotely. That I was safe. That I'd explain more when I was ready. I didn't leave my phone number. We drove in silence most of the way. Just before the terminal, Grandma pulled over and handed me a small envelope. It had a St. Christopher medal in it and a photo of us from the robotics fair 3 years ago. "I'll answer every email you send," she said. And then she hugged me so tightly I had to pull away first. The airport was a blur. Security. Boarding pass. Final boarding call. I watched the city shrink from the airplane window and felt nothing. No sadness. No guilt. Just air. When I landed, the program had someone waiting for me at arrivals. There were 3 other students, all older, all already talking about internships and research placements. I kept to myself that first night in the dorm. Just unpacked the essentials and lay on the twin bed with my laptop on my chest. There were 3 messages from Grandma. And then 1 more from my mom. Not a question. Just this. "Where are you? Jake's game is tomorrow." I didn't reply. A week later, the Academy posted an article on their homepage. Top scholar joins International Fellowship Program. My full name. My photo. A quote about future research goals. That's when they found out where I really was. And that's when everything started unraveling. It took 3 days before they called. Not a text. A call. From my dad's number. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then again an hour later. Then from my mom's phone. Then silence. That night, I opened my academy email to find a forward from the program coordinator. It was a message from my parents, sent to the academy's general inbox. Short and clipped. Asking for confirmation that I was enrolled in something overseas. And if I was safe. That word again. Safe. Not "where are you," not "why did you leave," not even "we're sorry." Just that I was safe, like I'd wandered off during a family trip and someone needed to log it for a report. I ignored it. Classes started fast. Real-world work. I was placed in a team with 3 university-level students working on a data analysis project for a nonprofit. My job was to handle early modeling. I was the youngest by 2 years. And still no one here made me feel small. My roommate was from Mexico City and stayed up late blasting music while doing calculus. She asked once if I missed home. I told her I didn't. Not really. Just my grandma. She nodded like she got it. 2 weeks in, the first package arrived. It was a shoebox. No return address. Just my name scrawled across the top. Inside was the plaque. The same one from the academy ceremony, wrapped in newspaper. No note. No explanation. I stared at it for a long time. They had found it sitting on the table or tossed aside somewhere. They didn't keep it. They didn't frame it. They mailed it like something forgotten at a hotel. I set it on the top shelf of the closet and didn't touch it again. 2 nights later, Grandma called. She sounded tired, and for the first time ever she forgot my time zone. "I think you should know something," she said. There was a pause. Then she said that Jake had gotten into a fight at school. With his coach. Something about missing practice and refusing to sit out a game. Dad had gotten involved, made it worse. He's been benched. And he's blaming your mom for not backing him. She didn't ask me to call them. She didn't even suggest I reach out. She just said, "They're cracking." Then, softly, "Your brother said he feels like everything fell apart when you left." That night, I lay in bed thinking about how fast things shifted when I removed myself from their equation. I'd spent so long trying to earn their attention, and the second I stopped asking for it, their whole house started leaning sideways. 2 days later, a message popped up in my inbox from a local paper back home. A journalist was writing a feature on the Academy program and wanted to interview me about my fellowship. Somehow they'd gotten my email. I said yes. The article ran online the following week. My photo. My full name. A quote about how I learned to stop waiting for approval and start choosing myself. I knew they'd see it. They did. My mom texted the next day. "That was cruel. You made us look like strangers." I stared at the screen and thought, "You are." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent the link to Grandma, who wrote back one line. "Proud of you. Don't look back." So I didn't. And that's when the story really started. By the 3rd month abroad, I stopped checking for their messages. They still came, just spaced out now. Cold fragments of effort. One from my dad, "Your mother's not sleeping." One from my mom, "We're trying here." Another, "You don't get to erase us." They all blurred together. None of them said what mattered. Not when we were wrong. Not when we're sorry. Meanwhile, life here moved fast. The fellowship gave us mentors, real ones. Mine was a data scientist who actually listened when I spoke. She looked through my research proposal and said, "This is graduate-level work." Then she asked if I wanted to present at a tech summit in Zurich next spring. I said yes without even thinking. The days were packed. My head was full of code, ethics debates, neural networks. I stopped feeling like the kid who'd run away. I started feeling like the person I was always supposed to be. And then in November, my grandma stopped answering. No calls. No emails. Nothing. At first I thought maybe her Wi-Fi was down, or she forgot her phone again. He did that sometimes. But then a message came through from her church email. A woman named Lillian wrote, "Hi Allison. Your grandmother asked me to let you know she's in the hospital. She's asking for you." That was it. I booked a flight the same night. No hesitation. I didn't even tell the program staff until I was already at the airport. 12 hours later I was back in the US, cold wind hitting me like a slap when I stepped outside. My grandma's town hadn't changed. Same rust-colored trees, same tiny diner on Main Street. The hospital rooms smelled like lemon cleaner and something too sterile to be comforting. But she smiled when she saw me like nothing hurt at all. Her voice was weak, but she still managed to say, "I knew you'd come." I stayed with her for hours. She held my hand while I told her everything. Not just about the research or the summit, but the nights I sat alone in my dorm, the guilt that came in waves, the silence I thought I needed. When I asked if she hated me for leaving, she shook her head. "I just didn't want you to leave alone." He was asleep when my mom walked in. I heard the heels first. She didn't knock. We locked eyes, and for a second neither of us said anything. Then, "You really weren't going to tell us?" I didn't answer. She sat down on the other side of the bed, brushing my grandmother's hair off her face. "I called," she said. "I texted." I laughed. "This came out." "Yeah. After I left. I didn't know you were serious. About leaving. About cutting us off. That's because you never listened." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. My dad showed up an hour later, standing in the doorway like he wasn't sure if he was allowed in. They both sat there quietly until the nurse came in and asked us to step out while they checked her vitals. Outside in the hall, my dad turned to me. "You can't really mean to keep us out of your life forever." I said nothing. "You're still our daughter." "No," I said. "I'm your second choice. Always was." And for once, neither of them denied it. That night I stayed at Grandma's house. It was quiet and full of old blankets and framed pictures of people she never gave up on. She had a photo of me on her fridge. The one from the robotics fair. None of my awards were on display at my parents' house. Not even the plaque. Just Jake's trophies. The next morning Grandma was gone. I sat in the hallway outside her room while the nurses did what nurses do. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped me out from the inside. She had been the one person who never asked me to shrink. My mom cried. My dad stood with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. I walked past both of them without a word. I didn't go to the house. I didn't go to Jake's game. I didn't stay for the funeral planning. I got back on a plane that same night. And when I landed, I had a message waiting. Not from them. From my mentor. You still in for Zurich? Because they want to give you a solo session. I looked out the airport window, watched the sun hit the tarmac like something holy, and thought, I might have lost the only person who ever saw me first. But I'm not going back to being invisible. Not ever again. Zurich confirmed. They were flying me out early, covering everything. I forwarded the itinerary to my mentor and then deleted the rest of my inbox. I hadn't opened a single message from my parents since the hospital. But they hadn't stopped trying. One text came from Jake. They're losing it without you. Mom cried when she saw your interview. I stared at it for a while. I didn't know what bothered me more, her crying or the fact that Jake had finally noticed I existed. He used to joke that I was the quiet one. The background character. Now I was front page on the academy site and his football career was crumbling. The next day Grandma's lawyer emailed me. She'd left me her house. All of it. The will had been updated just 3 weeks before she went into the hospital. My parents got nothing. I hadn't asked for that. But she knew. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. I booked a contractor from overseas to start minor repairs. 2 days later I got a message from Jake again. They're fighting. Dad yelled about the will. They thought everything would go to them. Then one more line. You're not coming back, are you? No. Not now. Not ever in the way they wanted. Zurich was colder than I expected. The night before my presentation I stood in front of the hotel mirror, rehearsing the opening line. I'd said it 100 times already, but this time it felt different. This time I wasn't doing it for approval. Not for applause. Just for me. After the summit they offered me a summer residency. Same city. Same lab. A fast track to something bigger. I signed the papers that night. The next morning I woke up to a voicemail. It was my mom's voice. She sounded different. Not angry. Not defensive. Just small. She said she saw the summit photos. Said she was sorry she didn't understand how much it all meant to me back then. That they were proud of me. That maybe they hadn't shown it, but they always were. Then she said something I didn't expect. We made Jake believe he was the center of everything. And we made you believe you had to be quiet to be worthy. We failed both of you. I didn't delete it. But I didn't call back. A month later I got a wedding invitation from Jake. He was getting married. Small backyard ceremony. I wasn't invited. He never sent another message. That was the last time any of them reached out. Years passed. I published work. I gave talks. I moved again. Eventually I stopped checking on them. When I got married I kept it small. Just my closest friends. My mentor flew in. My team surprised me with a cake decorated like the Zurich skyline. There were no parents at my wedding. No apologies. No speeches trying to make up for the years they disappeared while I was right in front of them. Sometimes I still think about that night at the academy. The empty seat. The silence. The plaque in my lap. What they didn't know is, that was the moment I left. The rest was just geography. It was just geography. It was just geography.